Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The sound of Stacy's heels clicking against the polished hardwood floor echoed in the silence of our living room. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the prenup spread out on the coffee table like a relic of a past life. The paper's crisp edges seemed sharper under the dim light, cutting into the calm I desperately tried to maintain. "Fraser," Stacy began, her voice measured but with an edge of urgency. "You know my parents are just concerned. They think the agreement is outdated given where we are now." I exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of my neck. "Concerned?" I repeated, unable to keep the bitterness from my tongue. "Stacy, this isn't about concern. This is about control. Your parents never wanted me to succeed beyond their grasp, and now that I have, they're scrambling to pull me back under their thumb." Her face tightened. She perched on the armrest of the chair across from me, crossing her arms defensively. "That's not fair. They're family. They're just trying to protect what's theirs." "And what about what's mine?" I asked sharply, gesturing toward the documents. "This prenup was their idea. 21 years ago, they didn't trust me to make something of myself. They wanted to safeguard their assets because I was just the middle-class guy marrying their golden daughter. Now that my fortune eclipses theirs, suddenly it's a problem." Stacy didn't respond immediately, but the flicker of guilt in her eyes betrayed her. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "You've supported me all these years, Stacy. I know you have, but the fact that you're even entertaining their demands now, it makes me wonder, whose side are you really on?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought she might lash out. Instead, she said, almost pleadingly, "Fraser, I'm on your side, but you have to understand they're pressuring me. Every phone call, every dinner, it's relentless. They think you're being unreasonable." "Unreasonable," I echoed, the words sore on my tongue. I stood and paced to the window, looking out at the city skyline. My reflection in the glass stared back at me, tired and tense. Do they even realize what they're asking? Dissolve the prenup? After everything I've built? The silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, Stacy broke it. "What do you want me to do, Fraser? Cut them off entirely? They're my family." I turned back to her, the weight of my decision solidifying in my mind. "I want you to stand by me," I said, my voice firm. "I need to know that you're not letting them plant seeds of doubt in your head about us, about me." Her lips parted as if to respond, but then she closed them, uncertainty flickering across her face. The hesitation hit me harder than I expected. The room felt colder somehow, the gap between us growing. I decided to push. "And if you can't, if they keep pushing, and you don't draw a line?" Stacy stood abruptly, her tone defensive again. "That's not fair, Fraser. I'm caught in the middle. I'm trying to keep the peace. Sometimes, keeping the peace means choosing a side," I said quietly. Her shoulders slumped, and she rubbed her temples as if trying to ward off a headache. "I need some air," she muttered, grabbing her coat and heading toward the door. As the door clicked shut behind her, I sank back onto the couch. The prenup lay there, an accusation in ink. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, jolting me from my thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. "Watch your back, Fraser. You're not untouchable." A chill ran down my spine as I stared at the words, my mind racing. The cracks in our marriage were one thing, but this felt like the start of something far more dangerous. The following morning, I walked into the kitchen to find Stacy sitting at the counter, stirring her coffee absently. Her gaze was fixed on something far beyond the window, her expression unreadable. For a moment, I considered not saying anything, leaving her to her thoughts. But the weight of last night hung between us, demanding acknowledgement. "I didn't sleep much," I said, breaking the silence as I poured my own coffee. "Neither did I," she replied without looking at me, her tone clipped. I leaned against the counter, the cup warming my hands. "Stacy, we need to talk about this. Ignoring it isn't going to make it go away." Her spoon clinked against the cup as she set it down with more force than necessary. "Do we, Fraser? Because every time we try to talk, it feels like we're just digging the hole deeper." I sighed, searching for the right words. "I'm not the one digging. Your parents are. They've been doing this for years, needling, undermining, trying to turn us against each other. And now, with this prenup business, it's like they've declared open war." Stacy's eyes flashed as she turned to face me. "You think I don't see that? You think I don't know how manipulative they can be? But they're still my parents, Fraser. They're not going away." "They don't have to go away," I countered, my voice rising despite myself. They just need to stay out of our marriage. The tension crackled like static between us. Stacy opened her mouth to respond but was interrupted by the sharp buzz of my phone on the counter. I picked it up, frowning at the unknown number again. The message on the screen made my stomach tighten. Time's running out. You've been warned. Who is it? Stacy asked, noticing the shift in my expression. No one, I said quickly, locking the screen. She narrowed her eyes. Fraser, don't lie to me. What's going on? I hesitated, torn between protecting her and the gnawing suspicion that I couldn't fully trust anyone right now. It's nothing, just work stuff. Stacy studied me for a moment, her expression hardening. You're shutting me out, she said quietly. This isn't just about my parents, is it? Something else is going on, and you're not telling me. I'm trying to protect you, I said, my voice softer now. From what? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Her shoulders slumped, and she shook her head. You say you want me to stand by you, but how can I when you won't let me in? Before I could respond, her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, her face paling as she read the screen. What is it? I asked, suddenly alert. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear. It's my mother. She says we need to talk, urgently. The pit in my stomach deepened. Stacy's family was always calculating, always plotting. Whatever was coming next, I knew it wouldn't be good. The drive home from the office was unusually quiet that evening. The city streets blurred past me, neon lights smearing against the glass. My mind churned with fragments of the day's events and the cryptic message I'd received that morning. Time's running out. You've been warned. It was the third one this week. The messages were starting to gnaw at my focus, though I hadn't mentioned them to Stacy again. Part of me wanted to dismiss them as a cruel prank, but another part, a darker, more paranoid part, was beginning to wonder if her family had something to do with them. When I walked through the front door, Stacy was sitting on the couch, her laptop balanced on her knees. She glanced up, her expression guarded. You're late, she said, setting the laptop aside. Long day, I replied, loosening my tie. She stood and crossed her arms. My parents called, again. I let out a weary sigh. What do they want now? They want us to meet for dinner tomorrow night, she said, her tone carefully neutral. They're insisting it's important. Important for what? Another lecture about how I don't deserve you. I snapped before I could stop myself. Stacy flinched, her expression hardening. You don't have to go if you don't want to, Fraser, but I'm going. They're my family. Your family doesn't respect boundaries, I shot back, my frustration bubbling over. They've been meddling in our lives since the day we got married. Her face flushed, and for a moment, I thought she was going to lash out. Instead, she turned away, her voice icy. You're not the only one who's tired, you know. I'm caught in the middle of this mess, and it feels like no matter what I do, it's not enough for anyone. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I hesitated, then pulled it out. Another message lit up the screen. You think you're safe, but you're not. Watch your back. Who is it this time? Stacy's voice cut through the tension like a knife. No one, I said, locking the screen quickly. Stop lying to me, Fraser, she said, stepping closer. This is the third time today you've brushed me off. Something's going on, and I deserve to know. Her eyes searched mine, and for a moment I considered telling her everything. The messages, my growing suspicions, the private investigator I'd quietly hired last week. But I stopped myself. What if she was involved? The thought made my chest tighten. It's work, I said finally, forcing a tired smile. Just some project deadlines causing headaches. Nothing for you to worry about. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't push further. Fine. If you don't want to talk to me, that's your choice. She turned and headed upstairs, leaving me alone in the dimly lit living room. As her footsteps faded, I sat down heavily on the couch, the phone still clutched in my hand. I stared at the screen, the words from the message etched into my mind. Watch your back. Something was closing in on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Stacy's family was at the center of it. The air in the upscale restaurant felt heavier than usual, the soft murmur of conversations around us barely registering in my mind. Stacy sat across from me, her posture stiff, her gaze darting nervously toward the entrance. I knew she was expecting her parents any moment now, but I had a feeling this dinner would be less about pleasantries and more about the battle lines they intended to draw. I adjusted my cuffs, glancing at the entrance. Sure enough, Gregory and Evelyn walked in, their polished appearances as sharp as their disdain for me. Gregory's expression was stern, while Evelyn offered a tight-lipped smile that barely reached her eyes. Fraser, Gregory said curtly as they reached the table. Gregory. Evelyn, I replied, standing to shake their hands out of politeness. Their grips were cold, perfunctory. Once seated, Evelyn wasted no time. We appreciate you meeting us tonight, she began, her tone saccharine, but laced with something sharper. We need to discuss something important, Gregory added, leaning forward slightly, his eyes bored into mine. I exchanged a glance with Stacy, whose expression was unreadable. I figured as much. What's on your mind? Gregory's jaw tightened. The prenuptial agreement. It's outdated and unnecessary at this point. You've built your fortune, and frankly, it dwarfs the assets Stacy brought into this marriage. I stiffened, my hands tightening around the edge of the table. You want me to dissolve it? It's only fair, Evelyn said with a smile that didn't quite mask the venom beneath. This arrangement doesn't reflect the realities of your success or your obligations to the family. Obligations, I repeated, my voice sharp. I don't recall agreeing to bankroll your lifestyle when I married Stacy. Fraser, Stacy interrupted, her tone pleading. They're just asking for fairness. Can't we at least talk about it? I turned to her, incredulous. Fairness? Stacy, I've worked every day of my life to get where I am. This agreement was your family's idea, not mine. And now that I've succeeded, they want to rewrite the rules? Gregory's voice cut through the rising tension. We're not asking, we're telling you. If you want to keep this marriage intact, you'll do the right thing. The words hit me like a physical blow. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Is that a threat? I asked, my voice low and dangerous. Call it what you will, Gregory replied, his expression cold. Stacy's hand reached across the table, but I pulled mine back. My chest tightened, anger simmering just beneath the surface. I need some air, I said, standing abruptly. Excuse me. Outside the restaurant, the cool evening breeze did little to calm my nerves. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another anonymous message appeared on the screen. You've been warned. Time's almost up. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. The pieces were starting to fall into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. One thing was clear. This wasn't just about money. It was war. The legal document sat in a crisp white envelope on the corner of my desk, as though mocking me. Divorce papers. I had written the first draft 2 nights ago after the disastrous dinner, but I hadn't yet had the courage to show them to Stacy. The ultimatum her parents issued had hardened something inside me, but her silence, her refusal to choose a side, was what hurt the most. I paced my study, the floorboards creaking under my restless steps. My phone buzzed again, and I froze. Another anonymous message. Last chance. Make the right choice. Enough was enough. My patience had frayed to the breaking point, and I was done playing their game. Grabbing the papers, I headed downstairs, determined to confront Stacy. She was in the living room, scrolling through her tablet, her posture rigid. When she saw me, her face softened briefly before hardening again, a battle of emotions playing out in her expression. Stacy, I said, holding up the envelope, we need to talk. She set the tablet down and folded her arms. About what? This, I said, tossing the envelope onto the coffee table. It's time we face the truth. Your parents don't want what's best for us. They want control. And you've let them. Her eyes widened in shock. Fraser, that's not fair. I've tried to protect you. Protect me. I interrupted, my voice rising. From what? They've been manipulating you, and you've let them turn you into a pawn. Do you even realize how much they've jeopardized what we have? She stood, her face flushed with anger. You don't understand how hard this is for me. They're my family. And I'm your husband, I shot back. Or at least I thought I was. Silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, she whispered, what's in the envelope? Divorce papers, I said bluntly. Her face crumpled, but before she could respond, the doorbell rang. We both turned toward the sound, confusion knitting our brows. It was nearly midnight. Who would come at this hour? I'll get it, I muttered, striding to the door. When I opened it, Gregory stood there, flanked by 2 imposing men in suits. His expression was one of triumph. I gave you a chance, Fraser, he said coldly. You should have listened. What are you talking about? I demanded, my pulse quickening. The men stepped forward, each holding a stack of papers. Gregory smirked. Lawsuit, fraud allegations. Let's see how well your empire holds up under scrutiny. Before I could respond, Stacy appeared at my side. Dad, what are you doing? She asked, panic lacing her voice. Gregory ignored her. This is business, Stacy. Something Fraser should have learned years ago. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. Business. That's all I had ever been to him, and maybe even to Stacy. But then something unexpected happened. Stacy stepped forward, blocking Gregory's path. "No," she said firmly. "What?" Gregory's smirk faltered. "No," she repeated. "I've let you control me my whole life, but not anymore." She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Fraser, I choose you." My heart clenched, but before I could react, Gregory's face darkened. "You'll regret this, Stacy." "No, Dad," she said with quiet strength. "You will." And just like that, the tide turned.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.